please.
Okay, so yes, it's a very much more factual, objective topic. It's a science class, and I've been told it's probably the most demanding seminar that a lot of the students will take. But I've tried over the years to change it up a little bit, both to make it a little less, you know, sorry, but you have to memorize these terms for anatomy. You can't just say what you think it should be, you know, it is a set fact. But I also felt that they weren't writing enough. So to start out with, and those papers that you sent around, I did look at those two, one about comments and one about motivation. And I found those actually quite helpful and supportive of what I find I actually already do. I am from a coaching background. I'm not from a formal teaching background. And so the first thing I do tell them at the beginning of the class is not, you know, oh, this is a really hard class, you're never going to pass it. It's anatomy is the basis of all medicine. If you don't know normal, you can never appreciate abnormal. And the second thing, if they aren't interested in medicine, which many aren't, I mean, they may take this class, like our goal is to have people take things they might not normally be spending time on, is they will come out of this class and they will never look at an animal the same way again. And so that's how I kind of started. How I personally try to be, my style is I am very enthusiastic about what I teach, and I'm very humble about what I know and what I don't know. I have a set number of things I can address, but there are lots of animals out there, and the students are assigned orders that they're responsible for. So they are often providing me with information I've not heard. So I'm very willing to admit, wow, that's really cool. Boy, you know, I didn't know that, or I had to look that up. But then I'm asking them more questions about what they've told me, or I'm clarifying what they've referred to in these assignments. And as an example of humility, I'm very happy to admit, well, not happy, but after getting involved in freshman, sophomore advisory committee, Hum Bio curriculum committee, to be honest, I had to look up the word pedagogy. That was not a term that I was familiar with. So I'm happy to say I now understand it and realize the value of it. Anyways, so there are three ways that I try to get learn more about these students. It's a small class, thank goodness, because I think individualized mentoring would be very difficult in large groups of 100 students or whatever. So I'm grateful and very happy to have this kind of class that I can teach. So in addition to lectures and learning names and functions and et cetera of different organs from different species, there are three things that I do to try to get to know the students better. And that way that helps with the individual approach. One is they have to write homework reflections on the lectures or the labs or even the field trip that we do. And those reflections are meant to be, they have two styles they can take. One is they can delve into that organ system that I talked about and elaborate on what it's like in their own order or animals. Or they can take sort of the easy way, which is a stream of conscious sort of, wow, you know, she talked about insulin and diabetes today, and my uncle was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and I didn't understand what that meant, and now it's clear. And so that I kind of get them to open up a little bit and just think about the application of what we've talked about in their own personal lives. That gives me insight to the student. When you have athletes, the musculoskeletal system is an easy no-brainer for them. They're like all these injuries they've had, they can relate to, and they can talk about this. Last year in my class, I had 3 rugby players, all of whom broke a bone during the class at some point. So, you know, there were really things in their life that they could relate the class material to. And in the feedback to them, again, if they are not clear on what they've heard or they're a little confused on it, I'll sort of try to straighten them out, but I'm also like asking them more questions. I'm asking them, oh boy, you were really lucky that this happened. It could have been much more serious. I mean, et cetera, that type of thing. So even on the stream of consciousness, I'm getting a sense of how they think, how they put thoughts together in a less technical way. And then the ones that are very technical are the ones that sometimes are giving me information. And so I have, okay, this one has a little different goal. This is maybe they're more interested in medicine. And so I'm gonna try to pursue that. The second thing, the field trip, which comes at the end of January. So they've had 4 weeks of lectures. We go see the elephant seals in Año Nuevo. If you have never been, it's amazing. I've been probably 15 times. I never get tired of it. And that's sort of a first introduction to big picture look at these animals with this unique environment and this unique anatomy and such. They're like aliens, these creatures are like so weird. So that's a really great way to like get the students interested. And then also we go to Duarte's for lunch and sit around and I ask them, what's your background? Why'd you choose Stanford? What are you interested in? So each student I'm talking to in that regard. The third thing I do is I have dissection labs. And this is something that they don't get anywhere else on campus. And again, my goals for these labs vary, and it can be extremely critical for someone who wants to follow into the field of medicine, whether it's vet medicine or human medicine or biomedical research, or it can be just this like awakening of what the body and how the body works. So they watch me do a pig necropsy. I'm actually a veterinary pathologist, so I cut up dead animals for a living. And they watch me do that. And my goal for that class, which is the first lab, we break into small groups. So a class of 15, I'd have 2 groups of 7 or 8 students. So it's again, smaller, and I can see them, I can look at their reactions. I'm constantly trying to make sure people don't pass out because that does happen. And so one goal is they survive the lab. The second goal is they might answer a couple questions, about, okay, what's this organ? Of course, they've never seen it, but they've heard about it. So how well do they relate the information from lecture? And then the third thing is if they do have to leave the lab, which happens usually maybe 1 person a year or 2, they'll come back in afterwards. And that is a huge accomplishment as far as I'm concerned. And I let them know, because I warn them ahead of time, this could happen and it's not anything negative about you. It's a physiologic response. You might just be surprised, so don't worry about it. So if they come back in, I'm very supportive, and that is a good thing. And then we don't have any issues after that. In all these years, I've only had 1 student that did not come back into lab. So that was a good thing. The second lab is more on them. We're doing rat dissections. And these are not pickled, fixed, brown smelling of formalin creatures. These are freshly euthanized, real bleeding, colored, smell, the whole thing. And then they're learning how to use instruments. Now, is that, if you want to be a surgeon, obviously that's something you need to do. But what else can doing dissection do for them and that I can help them with? Anything from hand motor, fine motor coordination, strength, following the instructions, because that I do everything and they watch. I do the first thing, they have to do it exactly as I do. So the feedback isn't just from me, it's the feedback they get from actually the success of accomplishing that particular part. So that it takes the onus off of you. If it's negative, if they rip the tongue off because they're pulling too hard, I don't have to say it, they know they've done it. I mean, they can see it. So the feedback there is kind of neat because it really is a lot of what they themselves do. And then the third lab, which comes after our exam, and is not covered on the exam, is just a much more opportunity for them to really get to use the instruments and to do more. And again, some people are really into it, some are not. I've found that the ones that seem to know the most and can answer the most questions often are the least skilled or naturally skilled at dissection. And the ones that can't answer questions can just be so into it. So I do offer independent studies in following our subsequent quarters if they want to continue and do lots of mouse necropsies. They want to do more with histology. And I'm going to give 3 examples of students who have done this with me. Again, yes, my pre-vets I often encourage. They will do this. Pre-meds, pre-researchers will do this. But it's the students that you least expect that get back in touch with you and say, oh, you mentioned we could do an independent study. I'd really like to do this. One student was not a very good student academically, had some physical issues, and yet had always tried. I always could see how hard he was trying in the labs. And so he did this for 2 quarters with me. And it just built up his strength, his confidence. and gave him more of a comfort level for whatever he might go into in the future. I felt like that was the way that this was benefiting this person. Another student who was an average student, but really seemed to take to that dissection and learning the histology, I was able to arrange a position for her in a comparative pathology lab at UPenn and for the summer, where she went and worked with the pathologist doing mouse and histology things. And so without her having done that, I would never have picked her to be someone that would have wanted to do that. The third one is a pre-dental student who, again, very tiny young woman, spent a lot of time working on her fine motor coordination because she wanted to be a dentist. And I know I want my dentist to have really good technique. And I was even able to provide her with pig skulls to practice taking teeth out because she got her own dental instruments. So I think that, you know, you have your subject material, what you're trying to teach, but you got to observe the students and try to figure out other ways that they're going to benefit from it that might not be the traditional way that you would think they might benefit from it. So,
okay, thank you.